Alright, today's review is Venom, starring Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock. Venom, this movie came out 3 years ago, 2018, directed by Ruben Fleischer. This movie starts off, a spaceship crashes into Earth. It is carrying a bunch of alien symbiotes. One person manages to survive, and that's J. Jonah Jameson's son. He is taken into an ambulance where he has been possessed by one of the symbiotes. That would be the Riot symbiote. So it escapes from the spaceship and it travels across the world doing what it does. A bunch of wrongful death lawsuits are filed against Carlton Drake. He is the leader of the Life Foundation. They were in charge of the space mission that went wrong on re-entry. It's very similar to the Columbia spaceship explosion. Both spaceships were entering re-entry and they both blew up. So we go to San Francisco. We get introduced to Eddie Brock, who's being played by Tom Hardy. He's doing a show called The Eddie Brock Report. And Eddie Brock, over the past few years, has been taking down these big giants, these corrupt businessmen. He's been taking out a lot of crooked people, and he's gotten popular because of that. So he gets the Carlton Drake job, and he is warned by his boss, Bobby Fish. That's right, Bobby Fish from Luke Cage. He's in this movie. I was surprised by that. Is this movie in the MCU? This in the MCU? I have no clue. At first it seemed like it was, then it wasn't. There might be a tie to Spider-Man in this movie. Spider-Man, he does make a cameo by graffiti sprayed on a building. But I think things will be much more clear by the end of the second movie. I'll get you my thoughts on that one soon. But yeah, Bobby Fish, he tells him to get the facts, talk about the space mission, and thank Carlton Drake, then leave. So Eddie, he does his report. He starts off strong, and then he starts asking Carlton Drake about the controversies and allegations. So Drake, he escorts him out of the building. His fiancée at the time, Anne Wang, who's being played by Michelle Wilson, she gets fired because she works at the law firm that is connected to the Life Foundation. Eddie Brock steals her depositions as the basis for his report. So Eddie Brock also gets fired. Anne is furious, so she breaks up with Eddie and dumps him on the street. So Eddie has to go rent a low-income apartment while Anne keeps her house. Anne later meets a new fiancé who is a doctor, and his name is Dan. So anyway, Eddie, he's in the dumps. No clue what to do. He's drinking at a bar. He wants some kind of job, but no one's offering him jobs. So we go back to the Life Foundation. They're doing human trials, and apparently they go wrong. The symbiotes that they have are not symbiotic with the human host because they have such poor designs. So every time a human interacted with a symbiote, they died because they just weren't symbiotic. And one of the lab assistants there, Doris Skirth, I believe that's her name, she's being portrayed by Jenny Slate. She is disgusted by what's going on, and she finds Eddie Brock and tries to entice him on doing a report at the Life Foundation and trying to take down Carlton Drake. Eddie Brock refuses. However, he does notice that one of his homeless friends, I think her name's Maria, she's gone missing. She's vanished. and we can all assume that the Life Foundation abducted her. So Eddie, he's become a little bit suspicious, and since he has nothing to do, he takes Doris on her offer. So they sneak into the Life Foundation. They're walking around, restricted areas, lab experimentation cells, stuff that uh, you don't want to be breaking into. High-tech stuff and stuff like that, sneaking through security. So he eventually finds his homeless friend Maria. She's locked behind a cell door, the glass cell door. So Eddie, he tries to break it open, the fire extinguisher. That sets off a trigger alarm. So Maria was possessed by the Venom symbiote, and she gives that symbiote to Eddie Brock. Maria collapses, so she's dead. Eddie Brock escapes. The security guards, they're chasing after him, and motorbikes are shooting at him with guns. So he escapes. And we eventually get to see the side effects that Brock has with the Venom symbiote. Auditory hallucinations. He's hungry. His emotions a little more out of control. Muscle spasms. Whole bunch of stuff. So the security team, they find out who was responsible for the break-in. That was Doris Skirth. Doris Skirth tells Carlton Drake, it was Eddie Brock, that broke into the facility and stole one of the symbiotes. And since it was Eddie Brock, Carlton Drake punished her by taking one of the symbiotes that Drake had in some type of small container. So I assume that the symbiote ate Doris Skirth. So the security team, they're out to find Eddie Brock. They eventually find him at his house. It's where you see Brock and Venom come into action. They're fighting the security guards. They're jumping over windows, jumping through glass doors, riding motorcycles dangerously through the city, causing havoc and destruction. You can see Venom wipe out the entire police force. Just a lot of destructive scenes in this film. So Eddie Brock, he manages to evade the security team and take out the entire SWAT team. Eventually calls Anne for help. Anne takes him to the doctor's office where they meet Dan. They run some testing experiments. They find out that Eddie has a parasite. And while they're discussing what to do with this parasite, the Venom symbiote escapes. So they have no clue where it went, and they're all looking for it. So the security team, they find out that Eddie is at the doctor's office. They find Eddie, and then they take him to their laboratory, the Life Foundation. So Anne, she locates the symbiote. The symbiote possessed the dog, and then the dog gives the symbiote to Anne. So we go to the lab. Carlton Drake's interrogating Eddie Brock. They're talking about symbiosis and what Carlton Drake's gonna do with the Venom symbiote and all that stuff like that. So Drake, he lets the security team, Trace, I think that's his name, he's the man in charge of the security detail. He takes him out in the woods, getting ready to execute him. But then Anne Wang appears in a female Venom symbiote suit. So she takes out this entire security team. She bites Trace's head off, and she gives the symbiote back to Eddie Brock. So now it's up to Eddie and Brock to stop Carlton Drake. Carlton Drake also acquires a Riot symbiote. The Riot symbiote had traveled across the world, eventually led to Carlton Drake. This leads to the ending scene at Life Foundation. They're near some giant rocket ship. Drake, he's battling out with Brock. and Venom is battling out with Riot. Brock and Venom win by blowing up the spaceship that Riot and Drake were trapped inside. They are trying to go to space to bring in more symbiotes, but however, one of the symbiotes' weaknesses is fire. So they blow up the ship, and Drake and Riot are dead. So that pretty much ends the movie. And in Venom, they decide to stick around to see if they can find some more bad guys as well. When we get the post-credit scene, you see Eddie Brock. He is trying to interview Cletus Cassidy. It's a cameo by Woody Harrelson, and Cletus Cassidy is known as Carnage. This is set up for the second movie, which we'll be reviewing later, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So that's the movie. Thoughts on the movie? Thought it was pretty good. A 10 out of 10 definitely. What I like about it, I like the relationship between Eddie Brock and Ann. Yeah, they broke up with each other, but they're not like typical broke up partners who are angry and want vengeance upon each other. No, they still love each other, but they just have difficulties. But a part of me does feel like they do want to get back together. I think that might happen. Maybe Ann, Dan, and Brock, maybe they'll all form one giant threesome. Maybe throw Venom in there, a foursome, a weird foursome. That might happen. So I like their relationship. It's also comical. Like when Dan is introduced, yeah, he's a new boyfriend, but he doesn't try to act tough. He just acts like a regular guy. I admire that. He's not afraid of Brock. He's not jealous of him. There's not really tension between the two. There might be a little early on, but Dan, he's a cool guy, man. He's a good guy. I like the relationship between Eddie Brock and Venom. They don't really like each other at first. Venom wants to do his own things. Brock wants to do his own things. But they have to come together at the end to stop Carlton Drake. So I like that. I like the opening scene. Starts off with some type of, horror film scene in space. Like aliens, or Predator. You got this dark music playing in the background. You got this spaceship coming in really slowly, crashing to Earth. It really sets the tone for this film. This film is actually pretty dark with some light moments in it. So I like that. I like the action. The action in this movie is pretty good. It's mindless destruction. That's what I like to call it. Yeah, some people aren't really a fan of mindless destruction, but you have Venom. He's a destructive guy. I happen to like mindless destruction. I like the action of Transformers movies. I like Ghost Rider, Hulk, Man-Thing. Man-Thing, Hulk, Ghost Rider, Venom, and the Transformers. They're all destructive creatures. And the action in their films need to be destructive, because that's who they are. I like the Venom design. He's bigger. He's scarier. He looks like a Venom. The problem I had with the Spider-Man 3 Venom, now the Spider-Man 3 Venom wasn't really a bad design. It was cool when the film came out. The voice I didn't like. The voice sounded like Snagglepuss. Remember Snagglepuss from the old Boomerang cartoons? Yeah. And he looked like a zombified version of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man costume. That's what he looked like. Black suit Spider-Man with fangs. That's what it looked like. But this one looks more like its own. Looks like a Venom. Though this movie does make up for parts of Spider-Man 3. Good, because I hate Spider-Man 3. Yeah, there's some parts I like about it, but go check out my rant. It's somewhere in my film review playlist. But I like the Venom design. I like the score for the film. The song at the end credits, it's Venom, written by Eminem and sung by Eminem. Now, I've heard of Eminem. I don't really listen to his music, but I did like this song. I appreciate films more have a great score. This one did. You got the rap at the end, you got this dark music at the beginning. They mix very well together. And last and not least, I like the cameo by Stan Lee. That was good, because that was the last cameo that he made before he died. The cameos he made in Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, they were posthumous cameos. I mean, he was already dead when those cameos were in theaters. But this was his last living cameo. Venom, a Spider-Man character, him and Steve Ditko created Spider-Man and these characters. So this was the last performance that he had before he perished. It was sad. I was shocked when I got the news that he was dead. I couldn't believe it. It was a Monday. I got the news 3 years ago. Wow. But Venom, I think it did a bang-up job. 10 out of 10. Yeah, critics at first, they were hard on this film, but I still think they really understand the gist of it. I mean, Venom is a complex character. That's what it says on the back. He is the most enigmatic and complex character. That's how you pronounce enigmatic. Enigma. That's what I'm trying to say. Enigma. Whatever. So Venom, I like it. 10 out of 10. I think it's a great film. And one of the best films I saw in 2018 theaters. And still one of the best films I've still seen to this day. Probably top 20. Maybe not top 10 or top 5, but definitely in the top 20. But this has been your Venom review. Venom Let There Be Carnage will be uploaded soon.